Refused to change my dinner plans at a favorite restaurant for my overstimulated nephew. Now my brother won't speak to me. My sister and I, early 30s, have an older brother. He's on his second marriage. His first marriage gave me my nephew, Connor, 15. Connor is autistic. When he was born, at the time, sister-in-law's family was the village. My parents were also the village. My sister and I were not. This resulted in many arguments until I told my parents they could either have my brother and his family and I would go NC, or they could respect my boundaries and I'd still be around. They agreed. Eventually, my brother got a divorce because of marital problems, one of which was his ex-wife insisting that I and my sister step up and help. I felt bad for him, still do, but I wasn't going to change my stance. My sister didn't either. I have lived out of state for a bit and recently accepted a new job offer close to home. It came with a nice bonus, so I decided to invite my parents, sister, and brother out for dinner at my favorite KBBQ spot. My parents confirmed that it wasn't my brother's week with my nephew, so all was well and good. About a week before I got back home, my brother called and said his ex had something come up and that he had Connor the upcoming week and his current wife was going to be out of town with her sisters. I said no worries, and asked if he wanted to call his regular babysitter for Connor and I'd cover it for our dinner night. He said no. He wanted to bring Connor to the dinner and asked if we could change the venue because Connor gets overstimulated. I said no. This was my dinner, I'm paying for it, I'm going to my favorite place. He said, your nephew really can't handle a place like that. I said yes, I know, that's why I'm offering to cover paying for a babysitter for that night. He argued that he'll just bring Connor with him. I said he's welcome to do that, but then I'm not going, so it'll just be him and our parents. He told me that was messed up, that if Connor gets overstimulated, he'll just take him and go outside until he calms down. I reminded him the last time we went to a KBBQ place, Connor had a meltdown and they had to leave. My parents always feel bad for Connor, so they'll usually leave and go to my brother's house to help. I said I didn't want that happening. I wanted to have a nice dinner without having to worry about that. He told me to go fuck myself and hung up. We went to dinner, my sister, my parents and I. My brother did not show up. It was a nice dinner. My parents enjoyed it too, but they said they wished my brother had come. I agreed. They then said they wished my nephew had come too. I did not agree. I said it would have likely resulted in my brother leaving after maybe 30 to 40 minutes of being there, and they would have followed him too. They agreed, but said I should have let him come anyway and just deal with it. I said that sounds like a good reason for me not to do that, and we didn't talk much that night after that. Ida? I've babysat Connor before, even now I will watch him for a few hours if my brother has to do something. I don't watch him all day or overnight though, it's not his fault and he is no way a bad kid. However, I had to set boundaries because my parents and brother, mostly his ex-wife, would take a mile if you gave them an inch. They wanted my sister and I to stay local after high school so we could help with babysitting, and I was not about to do that. I did see both of them before I left, since I wanted to, but I did not apologize for wanting to eat my favorite spot and have it done my way for just one night. Whenever my brother, wants to have to dinner, we basically go to the same local spot because it's quiet and doesn't upset my nephew and it's his fixation when it comes to food. That's perfectly fine, and I go to those dinners, but for my dinner, I wanted it somewhere I enjoyed. Update 1. While I did see my brother and Connor before I left, it was more of just playing with Connor and making small talk with my brother. I decided today to call my brother to try and get more info and smooth things out. We talked for about 5 minutes before I broached the subject. I told him I was sorry if it felt like I was being unnecessarily mean or exclusionary to Connor, but that I felt I had a right to decide how to celebrate the way I wanted to. He said he was sorry that he snapped the way he did, and looking back, he realized Connor would have had an awful time and it would have been a big waste of money for me. The place we went to was about $80 a person, $40 for Connor whether he ate or not. He just really wanted him to be there too. I told him going forward, for things like my birthday, I would be more than happy to have lunch as a family with Connor at somewhere he likes so he can have a good time, then go to dinner at somewhere I want to eat at and I'd pay for a babysitter or his mom, my brother's ex, can watch him. He asked if Connor would be welcome at the dinner too, and I said I don't think so because I still plan to have KBBQ/hot pot/sushi/fine dining and Connor doesn't do well in those environments, light/sound/smell/atmosphere, which is why I brought up having lunch the day of beforehand so we can all celebrate and it be okay for him. But I was still standing firm that for my birthday, or something like another promotion, I wanted to go somewhere that I enjoyed without having to worry. I brought up also that when he took us out to lunch, was once a month before I moved, he picked or my parents picked and they always catered to Connor. I had no problems with that and attended almost all of them. This time, I wanted something for myself. He wasn't over the moon about it, but said it sounded good and thinks Connor would enjoy it too. He also looked into getting him sunglasses, as one of you suggested, for bright/overly stimulating environments. He then had a question for me, which I knew was going to be asked at some point. Now that I'm closer to home, he asked if I was going to be more involved as an uncle. I said yes, but not in the way he probably wants. I said I'd be more than happy to go over to his house and hang out with him, his wife and Connor and bring food he likes, as well as babysitting him once or twice a month so he and his wife could go see a movie or have dinner together, but I wasn't going to be an on-call. babysitter like my parents are. Several times he's dropped Connor off at their house for a week/weekend with little notice because he and his wife wanted to go on a spontaneous vacation. I told him that was not going to happen with me, especially since I'm in the process of adopting a cat and he and Connor are allergic. I wasn't allowed to have a cat while I lived in my parents' house, which was fine because it's their house and it wasn't fair to my brother and Connor who were over super often, so him getting dropped at my new place was out of the question. He thankfully didn't press the topic and said it's okay, Mom and Dad don't mind, and that he missed hanging out with me and was happy that I could be around Connor more. Update 2. I, 31 male, moved back to LA from Texas for a new job. My parents live here, as does my brother, 40M, his wife, and my nephew Connor, 16. Connor is autistic, and while he's made a lot of progress since he was 10, still struggles with a lot of things. He is nonverbal, stims often, and frequently has meltdowns. My brother, his wife, his ex-wife, and my parents are the only ones really able to calm him down. I regularly watch him once or twice a month so my brother and his wife can go see a movie or hang out. I do, not /watch him overnight or for several days consecutively, and it's always at their house. After our argument last time, my brother and I have been on pretty good terms. He hasn't really pushed boundaries about babysitting and we've mended our relationship quite a bit. However, something came up recently that has us on rocky terms. My brother recently got news that he was selected to attend a conference out of the country. The company is putting him up in a hotel for 10 days, and while they won't pay for his wife to go, they have no problems if he pays her airfare and everything and occupies the room with him. I'm very happy my brother got this opportunity. The issue is childcare. The conference happens to align when my parents and sister are going to NYC for a week to celebrate my sister's birthday. Nothing is refundable and my parents promised my sister this over a year ago they'd do this. His ex-wife, Connor's biological mother, will also be out of town for work. So that leaves me. When he called me up to explain everything and ask, I told him no. However, I listed reasons for why I wouldn't do it. 1. I live about 90 minutes away. Distance-wise, not that far, but LA traffic makes a lot of things more difficult than they should be. I don't mind making the drive once or twice a month when I'm watching him, but I do not want to make it 10 days in a row. Connor cannot come to my place because I have a cat and he is allergic, as well as me having things around the house that are fragile. I do not WFH, and Connor would still be in school, so I would have to likely put in PTO to do it logistically. 2. The longest I've watched Connor was about 6 hours. He had a meltdown near the end that I was unable to calm him down from, and it was only my brother and his wife getting back 20 minutes later that saved me. I cannot picture myself doing it for 10 days straight. 3. This one might sound really selfish, but I don't want to set a precedent. If I watch him overnight even once, I know my brother and his wife would push it on me again. I don't want that to be a thing. I'm happy with our arrangement of me watching him once or twice a month and hanging out with him with my brother and our parents. That being said, I would not /hesitate to watch him during an emergency. But that is a totally different story. I explained this all to him. He wasn't happy. He went off on me about how he thought me being back would mean he could rely on me for this. I have said before, I am not an on-call babysitter, and his wife would really like to go on this trip. I said I'm sorry, but I'm not doing this. I said I would be happy to go and help her on the weekend he's not here and hang out with Connor, to give her a break, but I'm not going to risk my own mental health for 10 days and use 8 days of PTO to watch him for a non-emergency. He had a few choice words for me and hung up. He got my parents involved in the family group chat, and they surprisingly were on my side. They said it would be a really nice gesture if I did it, but reminded him that I've never watched Connor overnight and his wife doesn't have / to go on this trip. He hasn't really talked to me since. I feel bad for his wife not being able to go, but I also don't trust myself to be able to handle Connor for 10 days. Ada? She had let my brother know months in advance that she could not be able to take him for a 5-day period because she will be working out of town. This was a recent development for my brother, and it was during his time with Connor. Update 3. I messaged my brother. I said he has 2 options. Either he and/or his wife stay home and watch Connor, or he works with the local agencies / care facilities. I apologize if I'm not using the right terms, to get respite care for him for as long as they are gone, and I check on him during the weekend. I would not be watching him, and I will not hear him out in regards to that. He called me and his wife got on the line and said that I know how she feels about other people watching him overnight, and how his mom feels too, and she's never been to this location before and it's on her bucket list. I said I'm aware, and that I'm assuming in that case she'd be staying home with Connor and maybe she and my brother can take Connor there in the future. My brother tried to interject and I cut him off. Said I really don't care what he has to argue, I'm not here for it. As some of you suggested, I again pointed them towards local organizations and government entities dedicated to helping parents with children with special needs but didn't really get anywhere. I was really burned out over everything, so I said good luck with the situation and hung up. I made a group chat with him and his wife and told him that, going forward, I will be visiting them once or twice a month. Meaning, one of them has to be there when I'm there. I'm not watching Connor alone anymore. I feel like this is a good compromise, letting me still hang out with Connor and also not being a caretaker. I told them that, maybe in the future, we can work back towards what we had before. But not anytime soon. They both wrote back paragraphs on how they were sorry but they had no other choice and thought maybe I'd do it for them, that this could be like a second honeymoon for them, and to please keep watching him for a day or two a month. That they'd even pay me for it. I told them no amount of payment is worth it. It's not fair to me, it's not fair to Connor. He is not my son, he is theirs. That they need to start working with agencies now, and get him accustomed to care and other people watching him, because our parents are getting old and soon they won't be an option. My brother responded that he and his wife will start the process, and get his ex involved too, but if that doesn't work, what are they going to do? I told them that it's on them. I'll happily join them in researching organizations and benefits, but if they have an inkling in their head that I'm going to do for them what my parents do, they are out of their minds. His wife asked if I would consider getting training and learning how to care for Connor like they do, and I shot that down. I am more than happy to be the fun uncle that drops by and hangs out, but I value my independence and I won't let that be compromised. Both of them eventually just gave me thumbs up emojis. His wife said she was going to stay home with Connor and not go on the trip, and said they'd see me in 2 weeks to have a hangout. We'll see what happens then, but at the very least, I'm not on the hook for watching him, and someone that can calm him is. Update 4. So much has happened in the last month that I'm honestly still processing it. I wasn't going to post again, but after so many people messaged and asked if things ever cooled off, I figured I'd write it out. I'm not sure whether things are better, just different, and some pieces of the puzzle have shifted in ways I didn't see coming. A couple of weeks after my last update, my brother surprised me by reaching out again, this time, with a completely different approach. Apparently, my response about agencies and support triggered a real conversation between him, his wife, and his ex. I say real because, for the first time since Connor was diagnosed, it wasn't about guilt tripping or squeezing me or my parents for an endless stream of unpaid labor. My parents, who'd just gotten back from NYC, told me my brother had made an appointment to meet with a social worker at a local autism resource center. His ex, even though she and my brother rarely speak cordially, agreed to join them for the intake. It wasn't all sunshine and progress, though. There was apparently some epic drama at the agency because the waiting list for finding a respite worker was months long. No shocker there, but also, the intake coordinator straight up told them it will take time for Connor to adjust, and for everyone in the family to actually commit to letting outsiders help. My brother and his wife didn't take this well at first. They vented to my parents, who, for the first time, maybe ever, suggested therapy for them, couples, family, whatever, to help them adjust their mindset about allowing support that doesn't come from family. As awkward as it felt, I agreed to attend a single therapist-mediated conversation, just to voice my boundaries and support honestly, so there wouldn't be any more "can you watch him for 10 days straight?" recurrences. To my surprise, we were all able to talk without fighting, for the first time in years. The therapist, a miracle worker, honestly, pressed hard on what my brother and Sil expect versus what other people actually can offer as relatives, not live-in staff. She explained, in much more professional language, that coming together as a family means respecting limits, and that not every family gathering or celebration has to be all-inclusive. My sister joined us on Zoom. She's like me, willing to help, but not to become a co-parent, and everything was out in the open for once. There was crying, and yelling. Connor's mom admitted she's been overwhelmed for years but terrified to accept non-family help. My parents confessed they'd been sidestepping the toughest conversations because they were exhausted and didn't want to face aging out of their caretaker role. The outcome was, for now, that everyone agreed to try, actually try, to involve outside support slowly. They started with a few respite agency interviews. The agencies sent 2 possible caretakers, just to hang out with Connor and let him get used to new faces, nothing high stakes yet. And then the really weird part, a neighbor of my brother's, a retired special ed teacher named Mrs. Green, offered to help out for the short term. She's known Connor tangentially for years, and seeing the trouble the family was in, said she'd be available after school for a few hours here and there. My brother and his wife, and especially Connor's mom, who's always skeptical of non-family, were very anxious, but desperate enough to give it a try. The first couple of sessions, Connor was nervous but no major meltdowns, mainly thanks to Mrs. Green having seen every trick in the book in her teaching days. She also helped my brother and his wife understand how to prep Connor ahead of time for outside care. With this new support network forming, slowly, shakily, but forming, it actually freed up space for other conversations. My brother was able to go to the conference, his wife stayed home, but my brother said the break was life-changing for both of them. When he got back, he asked me to meet up at Griffith Park for a picnic with the whole family. I'll admit, I was skeptical. It felt like a setup, but my parents swore it was just a reconnect. The picnic actually went smoothly. The focus wasn't on Connor's needs dictating everything. He had a plan for if he needed downtime, noise-canceling headphones, a weighted blanket, Mrs. Green on speed dial as backup. At one point he literally policed himself, told my brother he needed to cool off time, took his headphones, and chilled under a sycamore tree, no one chasing after him for a change. I can't remember ever seeing him so independent. The most surprising thing came after. My brother and his wife quietly admitted I was right. They'd never asked other people for help because it felt like failing Connor, but they saw now that their safety net, my parents, won't be around forever. The whole family has shifted into a weirdly mature, scary adult phase, setting up actual plans for Connor's future, research into guardianship, adult day programs, and resources like housing. The old wounds of who's helping enough? Haven't healed overnight, but at least, for once, we all know what we're dealing with. Me, I've kept enforcing my boundaries. My new arrangement is strictly fun uncle. I'll hang out, bring pizza, take Connor to a movie if he's feeling up for it. I already gave away my final Friday of the month for our standing dinner. Connor picks the spot, usually his usual burger place, not my dream dinner but, well, that's the gig. And, shockingly, I don't hate it. Some weeks it's the most real and present I've felt with my family in years. Update 5. Everything moved both faster and slower than I expected after that last picnic. My brother must have realized, maybe finally accepted, that the era of ad hoc, everybody pitch in on demand was fading, fast. Over the next month, the tectonic plates of our family dynamics started shifting for real, but not always in the directions I anticipated. First, Mrs. Green became a lot more central. Her just for now help kept turning into "Can you cover Tuesday, too?" She was game. My brother and his wife, especially his wife, who'd never really been able to breathe outside her caretaker role, were learning how to trust her, little by little. I actually got to see the difference. Connor, who'd always braced like someone was going to knock over his reality, started anticipating Mrs. Green's visits with surprising calm. One afternoon when I stopped by, he was actually waiting at the window for her, lined up his favorite plushies to show her the team. That level of preparation? New. Wild. But with Mrs. Green around more, suddenly there were, shockingly, gaps in the schedule where my brother and Sil could just exist, together, and, not as a fractured parental unit. They took a day trip to Pasadena, separately from any conference or work drama, and my brother brought it up in our next family meet as if it were the single biggest vacation of his life. I had to laugh. Real talk, I think he forgot people are allowed to have days off. And on my end, the fun uncle boundaries kept holding. At first, my brother would still lob the occasional, "You sure you don't want to just hang with him for the day while we type text," but a simple "I'm good for a movie or burgers" was actually enough to end the conversation. The new system became this: set plans in advance, communicate expectations, and never, ever make me out to be the superhero backup parent in case of emergencies. I didn't expect it to work for this long, but it has, so far. My brother told me later that his therapist has them keeping a whiteboard of asks around Connor's care. If it's not on there at least a week ahead, it's a non-starter. Progress in dry erase marker. The next loop the loop? Connor's school. They'd heard the family was finally reaching out for more support, and looped them into a social skills group run by a local university's grad students. My brother was wary, but Connor's mom put her foot down. If he can handle new aides, new teachers, he can handle a small group. I volunteered to drive him once, just to see. He didn't melt down, he didn't bolt. He sat in a beanbag, wore his noise-canceling headphones, and traded Pokemon cards with another kid. Not exactly the stuff of viral videos, but a gigantic leap for this family. He even showed an Ada's team plushies. The staff was all smiles. "You have more support than most families we see," one of them told me. "But your nephew's going to need more than family soon. You all are smart to be planning this now." I can't lie, hearing that from an outsider felt like closing a book I'd been skimming for years. Then came the hard curveball: my parents' health. Nothing tragic, just the kind of routine checkups and minor procedures that start piling up when you're in your late 60s. It hit my brother and his wife like a dump truck. Suddenly it wasn't a hypothetical, in a few years, we'll need other options. It was imminent. My parents finally put their foot down and flat out refused a few impromptu "Can you cover for us?" requests, citing doctor's appointments. For the first time since I can remember, my brother didn't blow up. He just accepted it. Maybe the therapy's working, or maybe the reality finally set in. Wisely, I just reinforced my new role. I'm the guy you call for pizza, movies, board games, minor chaos. Not emergencies. Not medical. Mrs. Green is temporary, the agencies are in the pipeline, and my brother is still going through the stages of grief for the family can handle everything fantasy. But I can see him trying, not leaning on me, not even for a "Can you pick him up from therapy?" request unless it's scheduled way ahead. And while all this is happening, here's the wildest twist: Connor is slowly, methodically, chipping away at more independence. One Friday at his burger place, he pointed to the menu himself, ordered for himself, burger, no cheese, fries, orange, clear as day with his speech device, and when the food came, he thanked the server. His mom teared up. Me, I kind of sat there wondering if I was hallucinating. I'd never, not once, seen him so poised. Later, she told me that getting new people around, Mrs. Green, new aides, grad students, has been hard, but maybe it's good for him. I just nodded. Sometimes maybe is as close to hope as you get. The whole family is recalibrating. My parents are reading up on what guardianship options look like. My brother and his wife, for the first time ever, talked openly in our family therapist session about what adulthood, housing, and the word group home might mean for Connor when he's in his 20s. No more fantasy that siblings will scoop up the whole burden, or that the system is something to fear, not use. We're nowhere near finished. There are still awkward dinners, silences, and I'm 100% sure one day my brother's going to panic and try to recruit me for something I don't want to do. But honestly, I'm finally starting to believe our family won't dissolve if I don't pick up every loose string. I stood my ground, the world didn't end, and something genuinely new is sprouting from the mess. Connor's birthday is next week. This time, my brother didn't ask if he could dump all the planning on us, or if we'd host. Instead, he asked if I'd help him pick a birthday cake. You still know which bakery he likes best, right? No martyrdom, no panic, just cake. For the first time, it feels like we're all playing our roles as they should be. And sometimes, that feels just as much like a victory as anything else. Update 6. About a month after Connor's birthday, he picked a cookies and cream cake, we all cheered, and he let his plush penguin blow out the candle. Classic Connor. My brother called me up early, Sunday morning, voice half panicked, half breathless. My first thought, something went wrong. Nope. His voice was shaky, but not in a crisis way, more like he'd just gotten a shot of adrenaline and was hoping I'd catch up. I need you to come over, he said, but bring something Connor will like and just trust me. I could almost hear him pacing through the phone. So I swung by their favorite bakery, grabbed those neon frosted sugar cookies, some fancy lemonade, and headed over, expecting, I don't know, some kind of family summit about respite calendars or agency drama. I pull up and there are more cars than usual? And bikes, a kid-size mountain bike and a battered red scooter. My brother meets me at the door, his hair is sticking up, anxiety vibes everywhere. He ushers me inside. The kitchen is a gentle chaos. Connor's sitting at the table with a neighbor kid who's using an iPad to communicate. Mrs. Green is drinking tea with Connor's mom, and there's a young woman in scrubs bandaging a scrape on Connor's knee. He's totally fine, by the way. Heroic attempt at off-roading on the scooter, classic 16-year-old. My brother's wife is, no joke, laughing on the phone, which is basically a sign of the apocalypse. So, apparently, here's what happened in the past 2 weeks. The local agency matched Connor with a young aide named Giselle. She's early 20s, doing her practicum for special ed, and, accidentally or not, became a fast favorite because she brought her own Pokemon deck and spent an hour just letting Connor ramble about Charizard. For the first time, there is someone outside the family who can handle after-school hours, and both my brother and his wife don't look like they need a rescue helicopter. Connor's school social group has partnered with a nearby special ed classroom for a multi-school project, a neighborhood scavenger hunt. The neighbor's kid, Evan, also autistic and a few years younger, asked if Connor could come to his house next week for team practice. My brother and Sil were terrified, until Mrs. Green offered to chaperone, easing the transition. The house feels open in a way I have not seen since before Connor was born, with neighbors and teachers swirling in and out. For the first time ever, my brother's wife called me, herself. Not my brother running interference, to tell me thank you for pushing boundaries. She said that out loud. Then, almost as an afterthought, she said, we ordered takeout sushi for ourselves last night. Not Connor's usual, just what we wanted. Not a big deal, for most people. She sounded so dazed and proud at the same time. Now for the actual bombshell. My brother and his wife want to try something totally new next month. A trial weekend, 2 Saturday nights, 3 weeks apart, where Connor stays at a local family respite house, supervised, licensed, short-term care for teens with disabilities, basically halfway between overnight camp and a decompression B&B for overwhelmed parents. They got the idea at therapy, decided to look into it, visited once with Connor, who at first was anxious, but then recognized a counselor from his school group, so he didn't panic. They're terrified. They're excited. They wanted to run it by the family, but this time, not as a request for me or my sister to step in, but just for our blessing. I nearly laughed, I was so relieved. There's a twist, though. They want to use the Saturday to do totally normal, non-parent things, possibly a drive up the coast, maybe see live music, maybe just exist as people who are married and not choreographed by Connor's routine. But here's the kicker, they also want to invite me, and my sister, if her schedule allows, for dinner that night. Their treat, at their new favorite ramen spot. A thank you dinner. For boundaries, the rest of that Sunday was weirdly peaceful. Giselle taught Connor and Evan how to race on their scooters, with stops for plushie inspections. Mrs. Green kept tabs, but honestly, I felt more like a bystander at a really good school carnival than a soldier in a battle. My brother seemed lighter, his wife didn't flinch every time someone rang the bell, my parents even showed up for a bit, dropped off some groceries, and left without that permanent look of should we stay longer? And, this, feels like a turning point, my brother didn't ask once if I could watch Connor for just a little bit more. For the first time, this wasn't my problem to solve, or my boundary to defend, or my job to be the unsung hero. I sat on the porch, drank impossible sugary lemonade with my nephew and his new friend, helped Mrs. Green keep the sidewalk chaos to a dull roar, then went home. On my terms. Honestly? I don't know if this whole system will hold. There's still too much to figure out, the adult living plans, my parents' future, and what happens when Connor eventually graduates. But the wheel is turning. The old bargains, someone gives everything, someone else disappears, are over. Not because I forced them, well, maybe a little because I forced them, but because the family just can't run on heroics anymore. This is new. This is weird. This is better. And now I get a free ramen dinner to boot, and all I had to do was not become the martyr. If there's a lesson in all this, maybe it's weirdly simple. Boundaries sometimes break things, but sometimes, if you stick with them long enough, they actually fix what's broken.